everyone. Welcome. This is SharePoint Power Hour. Good morning. Well, it is morning here. It's 11. This is the show that we do at 11 Central every Wednesday. I'm Laura Rogers, and Joelle is here with me today. And what is Power Hour? SharePoint Power Hour is a show that we do every Wednesday at 11, and it's I caused some echo there for a second. And it's basically just things that you can do in SharePoint and Office 365 that are out of the box without having to write code and not have to do server admin. I think there's something wrong with my microphone, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to Joelle and let her introduce herself and do her cool external user demo.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. So I am Joelle Farley, and if you've seen Power Hour before, you have seen my face, although I am not at Rackspace anymore. So I am at a company called Co-Designed, and I am in their offices today, and I'm doing some SharePoint consulting over there. And just like before, my kind of focus and expertise is in information architecture and taxonomy and search and all that fun stuff. And I'm also, I've been spending a lot of time just personally kind of ramping up on Office 365, so not just the SharePoint Online side of things, which of course is a big part of it, but also just kind of getting into, preparing larger clients to migrate to Office 365, since that seems to be a trend that's picking up a little bit. So what I wanted to do today is kind of go through and talk about a feature that's really simple, surprisingly so. Talk about a feature that a lot of people are finding pretty fantastic in Office 365, especially those that have dealt with extranets and external users and sharing with external users in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that and do a little bit of a demo. And then we will, if you guys have questions, of course, there is the, if you're watching on YouTube, there's the QA button. So you can click that and it will take you over to the Google Hangout and you can actually ask questions. Yep. So feel free to do that. And Laura will be looking out for questions, and I'll also take a look out for them as well. And we will also, if there's any issues with the Q&A, we've had that before. You can also tweet SharePoint Power Hour, the longest hashtag in history. You can tweet that, and we'll get out there and take a look at that as well, and just make sure if you guys have any questions, we can get them answered. And it doesn't just have to be about external users. It can also just be about anything. So feel free to put it out there, and we'll try to answer it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch over.
Anne already has a question. Anne says, has SharePoint Power Hour began? I'll often get her to the beginning. Yes, hopefully you can see us. There is usually a little bit of a delay, but yes, we're going. Thanks, Anne, for at least that we know the Q&A is working. And hopefully my microphone's a little bit better. I switched to a different microphone.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better. Okay. No more robot voice. Like I said, that could have just been me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. Then I will switch over to that. And Laura, just let me know if you can see a PowerPoint. Let's see.
Yep, there it is. I see it.
Okay.
And I'll make it so that your screen, so that we don't see my little face at the bottom the whole time.
Okay. All right. So this is a pretty simple PowerPoint, but I wanted to kind of talk through the idea of what external sharing is. So essentially, in Office 365, we have this idea of being able to easily share content with people outside of your organization. So this could be, non-employees, and it could also be partners or other companies that you're working with. Maybe you have a project site that you really want to get those users into, but you don't want to give them access. You don't want to have to deal with putting them in Active Directory or doing anything like that. So you just want to be able to easily share content with them. So the whole idea is the external sharing in Office 365 allows you to do that. So when I say zero technology overhead, as you can see on the slide, what I basically just mean there is that really it's very, very easy. And if you already have an Office 365 enterprise license, which most people who are dealing with SharePoint do, then you'll be able to do this at no additional cost. And it does not cost anything. These external users do not get licenses, so it doesn't actually add anything to your license cost as well. So there really is truly no technology overhead there, cost overhead. And also one of the things that in the past when I've worked with companies that had on-prem or otherwise hosted, they were working on building extranets. They, like I said, they either had to add people into their Active Directory, which is just kind of can be a little nerve-wracking because you're adding people from external places into your Active Directory. But also, you know, if folks would go the route of doing like a forms-based authentication where they would store users in a database and then use like a form when, you know, set up forms-based authentication. So when that user, you know, hit the SharePoint site, they get a login form, they'd log in and be able to get to the site. That usually required a lot of setup and configuration and just a lot of thought. So oftentimes it would be a little bit more complex than what most people would do. So the great thing about this external sharing feature is that you no longer have to worry about those types of things if you are in Office 365. And so I think it mentioned it in the title and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but this is just for Office 365. Maybe someday it'll be something that's available. Otherwise, I don't know, but we are focused on Office 365 with this particular feature. So if you are not utilizing Office 365 or not interested, then this may not be the best session for you. All right, so we know the why, so what it is and why we may want to look into it. And then the how. So we're able to actually turn the feature on either at the tenant level, which means kind of like across your environment in Office 365, or the site collection level. So you can decide, you know, either way, which way you want to configure it. And then you can actually share site collections or sites, a single library, or even a single item with a user. And then you can, once you have sent them an invitation, so once you've entered their email address in and sent them an invitation, you can manage that invitation under access requests and invitations. And so we'll go over there and look at that in a little bit. And essentially the way that this works is you can think of how with certain applications we have the ability to, you know, we can go on to Etsy or something like that and we can sign in with our, you know, Google account, or you can go on other apps and sign in with your Facebook account. That's kind of how this is working. So that's how the authentication works with the external sharing, because essentially users are going to be bringing their own login, bringing their own authentication. The only thing that's very specific about that is that it has to be a Microsoft authentication. So it can be OneDrive, it can be a Live account, it can be an Outlook account, or other Microsoft accounts. So let's say, you know, you're working with a partner, and that partner, you know, Contoso, they have their own Office 365 tenant or environment, and they have an account for that. They can actually, you can share to that email address, and they can use that account to authenticate into your Office 365 environment. So just a little bit there, and I'm gonna switch over once I kind of go through the slides. I'm gonna switch over and just kind of show exactly where this stuff gets configured and how that all kind of works and what it looks like. So the benefits of using this feature, I mean, I think the pretty key thing is that it's free. So you are not, like I said, you're not actually adding these people as users with licenses in your Office 365 environment. You know, these are users that are coming in without a license and are still able to edit and read documents and do what they need to do. So that there are different levels of permission that you can give. You can give an owner right. You can give an external user owner rights. However, their owner rights are going to be a little bit more limited than a regular owner of a site. But I think for the most part, like creating lists and libraries and doing things like that, they'll be able to do a lot of that stuff. You know, managing site columns and content types, they can do those types of things. But things like, you know, the term store or changing site collection settings, a lot of that stuff they're not going to be able to do. But still, that's a lot of power. And of course, that's probably one that you really, really want to think about. If you're giving somebody access that's outside of your company, you may not want to go the ownership route. But it is there if you need to. We also have edit and read, which are probably the most common. Most of the time we're just looking to kind of share or collaborate on documents, and this allows you to do that. So you can give them edit, so they can actually edit documents and that kind of thing. And I think with edit, they also would be able to create lists and libraries if they needed to, or contribute or read. So they just have read access and they can get in there and look at the site. So another thing that they do get, which is really, really neat, is they get the Office Online access. So they cannot, unlike a regular user of Office 365 who can, download the applications to their computer, they cannot do that. So it doesn't work quite the same there. But what they can do is they can view and edit documents in the browser. So they will have that same Office Online access that your other users would have. They just can't download the actual applications to their computer like you can as a normal Office 365 user. And they're added to SharePoint groups just like other users, so you can actually see them right in the SharePoint group, and you can manage them just like a regular user. So if you need to delete them from that group, you can do that. And so also they do get calendar. You can set calendar and Skype settings as well with external users. So when we go into the settings, we'll talk about that, but you can actually make some changes there so that there is some more collaboration with external users on calendar and Skype. So what are some of the catches? Obviously we have a great feature, but what are some of the things that we need to know? So obviously it's only in Office 365. We talked about that already. They have to have some kind of Microsoft account. So depending on who the user is, that may cause some difficulties. But it is pretty simple. When they get the email, when you set it up and you actually invite a user and they get that initial email, it will walk them through how to set up an account if they don't already have one. So it's actually pretty user friendly. There is no My Site for these users, so they do not get a personal site. They do not get a OneDrive for Business account. They may have their own OneDrive, but they don't get one within your Office 365 environment. So just some things to know there. Also, Power BI, Excel services, and Visio services, depending on what you need them to do with those things, they may not. Well, I think Power BI they don't have access to at all, but Excel services and Visio services, I believe they can view if you have like one of those web parts on a page, but they would not be able to go in and make any changes to that, even if they did have owner rights. And there are some search limitations. They will be able to search, but if they wanted to try to search, they won't be able to see the everything search result source. They would have to, be searching just on the specific site they have access to for something. They wouldn't be able to use that everything. And there's a few other things there as well. And of course, just with these are kind of added in just similar to FBA accounts. If you've ever seen an FBA account before, when you actually see it in a SharePoint group, it's not the most pretty thing. It has a lot of dashes and special characters. So they may not be the prettiest accounts to look at, but you should at least be able to see the email address that you used and the account name, and that should at least give you an idea of who they are. But just something to know there. All right. So that's enough of my just kind of talking. Woo, like when it does weird stuff like that.
Reiki psychedelic.
All right, so what'd you say?
I said psychedelic.
Yeah, it's like we're going into the Twilight Zone. All right. So I want to go ahead, and I have an Office 365 tenant that I kind of wanted to talk through a little bit. So at the one thing I want to note too is that I am currently, if you guys are using Office 365, you're probably, and our admins, you're probably familiar with this message up here. They're essentially switching over. They're updating the admin center and the way that it looks. And so I have not updated yet, so I can still show you this external sharing stuff. But once they update, it looks like the external sharing section here isn't in the beta that they've released. I'm hoping it will get added. You can still do external sharing without it. I actually just recently worked with a customer who was on the new admin center, and so I was still able to set up external sharing, and I'll show you how just in the SharePoint admin center. I was able to set it up. But this kind of high-level overview of sharing, external sharing, is just not in that beta. Hopefully, it will be in the actual release of the new admin center. All right, so external sharing. So we have sharing overview. It basically, this is just kind of where you can say, essentially, you know, if you want someone to be able to, on a site collection, turn on external sharing and use it, you can actually just come in here and just turn that on. So here's sites, you can just turn it on. And that doesn't mean that all of a sudden all these external users have access. It just means that your person if your person who's the admin, the Office 365 admin is different than your person that's your SharePoint admin, you know, that just means that they can go in on that site collection, they can turn external sharing on if they want to, and then they can begin using it. And then calendar, I mentioned that earlier, and we'll look at the actual calendar settings once we get down here. So let people in your organization share their calendar information using a public URL. Skype for Business, if you want to allow the people in your organization to add folks that are outside of the organization to their Skype application, then you can turn that on here, and then other integrated apps down there. And I actually have not worked too much with the integrated apps, so I don't know too much about that. But I think it relates to like third-party apps and things you install from probably like the SharePoint, the Office store. External users, so we'll go over here, and there's just one. But essentially, this is where all the external users that have been added will show up. So you can come in here, click on them, and essentially really just delete them. That's really what it's here for. It doesn't really give you too much information. A lot of times, people may ask, well, I really want to see what all they have access to. It really doesn't show that, but it does at least let you come to a central place to see all the external users that are out there. And that's the one thing I'm hoping that when they release the new admin center, that at least this part is there. So sites, and this part that I'm going to show you, I'm also going to show you how you can do this in the SharePoint admin center, just in case this goes away with the admin center update. But essentially, here is where you can come and choose specific site collections and then how you want to handle external users. So you see the different site collections here. I have some that say not allowed, and then I have others they say share links and invitations. Essentially, all I have to do is kind of click here on the site collection, and it will load, and it will let me choose to either, it also will show you how many external users you have. So it also, what it will let me do is either say, you know, no anonymous guest links, only allow sharing with authenticated users, or allow sharing with anonymous guest links for your sites and documents. So the difference there that you'll see is that you essentially have, like, when you're turning this on at the SharePoint site collection level, you're going to have either turn it off, like where there's no external sharing, or anonymous guest links, or only authenticated. And really what the idea there is if you, for the most part, if you're doing like an extranet scenario, you're going to want them to be authenticated because you want to be able to have some management over who those users are. So I would definitely, my recommendation there would probably, for the most part, if you're doing like an extranet type thing, would be to do the no anonymous guest links, only allow sharing with authenticated users. So that first option. The other option would be good for, let's say, if maybe you have like some kind of a blog or presentation, but you want to, you know, share documents on a site. You want to be able to share documents on a site that's on your SharePoint site with people that are anonymous. So maybe you're going to like post on your blog, hey, you guys can go here to this library to get training documents or something like that. So that would be a good reason why you would want to share with anonymous links. So you can actually get a link. They can then anonymously come into that library and get access to those documents if they wanted to. So just kind of those are the kind of, that would be a good example of a reason you may want to do it. But I think for the most part in an extranet scenario, you're probably going to want to go with that first option. But just good to know what those two things mean. And then we have calendar. So I'm going to go down to calendar down there. Let it load. And so basically, if you do turn on external sharing with the calendar, this just lets you kind of guide exactly what shows up for external users. So share the calendar via web link. Is it going to only show their free busy information? Is it going to show their time, subject, and location? Or pretty much is it going to show them everything? So you basically decide there, what you would want to show with external users. And then finally, Skype for Business. So I'll let that load. So you can actually see here, let people in your organization use Skype for Business to contact people in other organizations.
We have a couple of questions. There's a couple of questions.
Sure, I can stop for a second.
Alon says, so the authentication, in quotes, is done with the email address the invite was sent to? Yeah, that has to be their Windows Live account, right?
No, actually. So it's all up to them. You can actually send it to any email address, right? So let's say I am a user at, mycompany.com, but I have my own personal live account. So I can, if I don't have an account that's associated to that mycompany.com, a Microsoft account associated to that, like it's not Office 365 or Outlook.com, then what I can do is I can actually associate the account the My Company account to my live account. So that way it then passes that authentication over to Office 365, and then I'm in that system with using the live authentication. So it does not have to be the email address that the person who's setting up the access in Office 365, it does not have to be your actual, they don't have to know that account. They don't have to know what your live account is or your Xbox account. They don't have to know that.
Is it easier for the recipient if it is their live account, so they don't have to do those extra, do they have to like jump through some extra hoops to link the things together and all that?
Nope.
Or no?
Nope,
Okay.
it literally just, like they get the invite in the email and they click the link, and then the next question is, do you want to access with you? It comes up with, here's the two options you have for accessing, either like I said, like an Outlook.com, our organizational account, or like a live account, a personal one.
Okay.
And they click that, and then if they're already signed in with that, it will just pass that authentication over and bring them right to the site. Otherwise, they just quickly sign in to their live account, and then it would automatically pass that over. So there's really no even linking there.
Okay, and then Anne had made a comment probably a second ago when you were talking about the anonymous stuff. She said, no anonymous, or else the user can forward your email to anyone else. Yes.
Yeah. So anonymous is anonymous. So unless you really are okay with whatever you're sharing, like I said, a library of documents, you're okay with everybody in the world seeing that, probably not a good idea. But it is there. I mean, there are, like I said, there are situations where people are going to want to have like, a blog's like in their blog, they may have like a simple blog, but then they need a place to kind of keep documents that are, referenced in their blog or something. It could be a good option for that. I mean, obviously we have OneDrive, everyone folder or whatever. You can use that as well. Same thing. All right. Is that it, Laura?
For now, and y'all can keep the questions coming if you'd like. We got 16 live viewers.
All right, awesome. All right, so for the Skype for Business, you can let people in your organization contact people in other organizations, and you can actually set specific either block domains or allowed domains. So if you don't want them to just be able to add anybody with a Gmail or Yahoo account, you can say, well, specifically they can add, the domain of one of our partner companies or something like that. They can add people there, but they can add people just, anyone that they want to. So you can kind of make that determination at this level. And then public IM connectivity, let people use Skype for Business to communicate with Skype. So you can actually check that if you want, basically to let people use their Skype for Business and bring in all their Skype contacts as well and kind of use it as one platform. You could set it up that way. So that option's out there. All right, so that's kind of at the Office 365 Admin Center level. We're going to drill down into the SharePoint Center, Admin Center. So kind of bring it on down to SharePointville. I'll give it a second to load. And at this level, like I said, once it's kind of that question over an external sharing on the Office 365 level is set to yes, then here, if I'm the SharePoint admin and this is kind of the place that I live in, I can actually come in here and click on a specific site collection, click sharing here in the ribbon menu. And then I can choose, just like we were seeing on the other screen, I can choose don't allow sharing. allow external users who accept sharing invitations assigned as authenticated users, or allow sharing with all external users by using anonymous links. So I can go ahead and set that up there. It will show me what URLs. I can actually check multiple site collections, just an FYI, and then click save, and then that access is granted. So I can do that at that level. So just so you guys know, as I mentioned, if your admin center has changed and it doesn't show that external sharing section, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to do this. You just need to come over to SharePoint, and then you'll be able to do it from here. So just kind of a quick, good, one of the Office 365 change catches, because Office 365 changes all the time, as we know.
Oh, we got a question. Alon says, so really with a company extranet scenario with sensitive data, perhaps they will need to be authenticated. So does that mean the external users will need to be added as users of the tenant? Yeah. And then Ann just said, thanks for showing the Office 365 admin stuff.
I'm trying to repeat that question from the last question. You were kind of cut. Your mic was kind of cutting out for a second.
He said, with a company extranet scenario with sensitive data, perhaps they will need to be authenticated. So does that mean the external users will need to be added as users of the tenant? No, they'd be authenticated through Windows Live, right? Or?
Yeah, you do add them. We're going to go over and look at that. You do shared once you're in. It doesn't have to be a licensed user of the tenant, though. I think if that's what the question is, you can just go to your site collection. So that extranet site collection that you have, you go to that site collection and you can share from that site collection. And when you share, you can grant them the access that they need. You put in the email address, any email address that you have for them, so their company email address. And then when they're authenticating, it's up to them to, choose what account they're going to authenticate with. But pretty much it's still going to be, to you, it's still going to be the email address that you have for them, the one that you sent, that the email will go to basically to allow them to click on that and then be able to access the site.
Cool.
Ahead and all right, so once I'm inside the site collection that I want to grant access to, then I am going to go ahead and I'm going to click share. So I could do share at this level, which would share the entire site, or I could go to a specific library or a specific item and also click share there as well. So it works on the same levels that we would usually see permission set at. You can do it. You can do this at those levels as well. So I'm going to click share, and then I'm going to, and actually created a testing code. So I'm going to do this sptestingco@gmail.com. It's just an email I made up for this. And it tells me here that the sptestingco@gmail.com is outside of my organization. So you can go ahead and clearly see here that you're not obviously adding somebody in your organization. And then from here, you can go ahead and include a personal message. And as much as I often tell people to make sure you uncheck send an email invitation, this is probably that one situation that you do want to include a personal message with some instruction and what the site is. So you can go ahead and enter that in there. And then you can select a permission level here. And you can add them to whatever group. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give them only read access. I'm going to add them to my empowered visitors group. So I can go ahead and we'll add them to that group. And you may see also from this, if you see the can own, can edit, can read, essentially what it does, if you don't see what I'm seeing here, if you see that instead, essentially what it does is it's going to allow you, if you choose own, they get added to the owners group, whatever the owners group is. Edit, then they get added to the members group, and read, they get added to the visitors group. That's kind of how it would work. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. So that information, that email is going to get sent to that user. And in the meantime, I want to show how I can kind of see and track those invitations. So I'm going to go over to my site settings. And I'm going to go under users and permissions. I can go to access requests and invitations. And then here I can see an external user invitation. So we can also, this is another area that you could just see if you're somebody's asking to get access to a site inside your organization, this is one way you could see that. But the other option for this specific setting is that you can actually get to the external user invitations. And I can clearly see, this is who the person was, this is the permission I granted them, it was requested on this date, the status is pending. So the invitation will expire in 90 days. So that means that, let's say if you sent it to somebody and they never accepted it, and within 90 days, that's actually going to expire. If they tried to click on that link, it would no longer be available.
Hey, Anne
and then the request. Sorry?
Anne says, how do you get rid of the external user when they leave?
You just go in and delete them. You can go in just like when you delete them from wherever they have access to. If you delete them from that site, it will delete. They won't have access anymore. Like they're no longer in the system. They can't authenticate any longer. And of course, hopefully you can do that. Like I said, if the admin center at the Office 365 level doesn't change and actually has the external sharing, you can just go there, see that user, click on them, and delete them. And then that deletes them from everywhere if they are.
Next was, yeah, she said take them out of the tenant next. Yeah, at that level.
Yeah. And hopefully that is still there with the update. So I'm going to go ahead and show history here, and then I can actually see history. So if I want to see exactly, the history of who I've invited and when they accepted it and all of that stuff, I can come right here and see that. And you can see I invited Laura at one point. So you can go ahead and see the history of your invitations and when they were accepted and that kind of thing. And then once they're accepted, they will get added into your groups. So I'm going to go to site permissions. I think I have one in members. Did I add that one to members? Let's see. I think that's actually might be owners. Yeah. Well, that was Laura's anyway, so we can see that. So you can see there's Laura's account, and that was an external user. So it gets added right into the group. She was added into an owners group. And then I think if we give it a second, we might get the email. Kind of let this, there it is. So now if you guys want to see what the email looks like for the user, so they can see right here that Joelle Farley wants to share Empowered with you. So I can go ahead and click on that. And then it says, hello, come join our site, go to Empowered. And so you can, as you can see, that come join our site's the message that I added in there. And I can go ahead and as the user, I have this invitation, I can click on this. And it may just, see it's automatically because I'm already signed in into my live account, have it kind of set to automatically log in. So as you can see, because of that, it automatically logged me in. So I go right to the site. There is if they're not logged in, they're going to get a screen that basically shows them, like I said, it's going to say, hey, you can either sign into this with your live account, and it will show them like the Xbox option, the OneDrive option, or you can sign in with an organizational account. So like I said, if they're using Office 365 at their organization, they can authenticate with that same account. And then once they're in, they're able to read the site. So this person has read access, and they would only be able to, read the information inside the site. All right. So I think that should cover it. Did I miss anything? I don't think I did. Trying to think. Do we have any other questions?
No, I don't see any questions in there. Just the most of the questions that I see around this are, people from the IT pro perspective being paranoid about just being able to know where and, who all those external users are, and just like that admin perspective of how to be able to see that list and how to be able to get, I don't know, any kind of reporting. I want to see if my maybe my tenant has, because my tenant's got some of the newer stuff in it. I wonder if mine has anything. I'm gonna click around in there just while see if anybody has any questions. And okay, so there, see, that's where she went. So go ahead and reiterate kind of how you got to what screen you're on.
Yeah, so it's basically, if I go to external users, then I can see all of the external users that have been added. And it looks like the one I just did hasn't, oh, actually I don't know if that one may have come through as the same email address because my live account is tied to the same email. But essentially they're going to come in to the external user section here, and then you would be able to come in and delete them. And deleting them would remove them from wherever you have added them in the site. So if you've, added them into your, your extranet, you come here, you delete them from here, or you can actually delete them from the extranet. It really doesn't matter. It just depends on where you want to make sure they're removed from.
And when you click on their name to select them, does it show on the right, like where all they have access and anything like that? I guess
it doesn't. What it will do, like I said, and this is the thing, I'm not sure if it will be in the new admin center. So this under sites, let's see if I can go under sites, and I should be able to see, once I click on the site itself, I should be able to see what external users are in there, hopefully, if it's actually working correctly. So it says one external users, manage external users for this site. Yeah, so I can go that route. I can go to the sites level.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I'm at the sites level, I can actually click on, a specific site. I know that like these ones aren't allowed, so I'm not going to bother because I can't even add external users there. But I can click on my empowered site. I can see manage external users for this site, and then click on that, and then I'd be able to see, who has access at that level. So there are definitely ways.
Ann says we had a user who forwarded his email to someone else who used it to set up the account for themselves. So I wonder what they mean by set up the account for themselves. Huh. Set up. Oh, they connected that invitation to their own live account, I guess, maybe.
Maybe.
Interesting. Is that what you're saying, Anne? So if someone shares a link and doesn't share it with the individual, I wonder if they shared it as sharing it with an individual or if they shared it as a link. Because think about the scenario, where you were talking about like sending it to somebody's email address, but then they get prompted once they click on it to go pick whether they want to associate it with their own, their other live account or whatever.
Choose how to authenticate.
Do what?
When they choose how to authenticate.
Yeah, so maybe they forwarded it to somebody else before they clicked on it, so the other person like associated it with their account or something. She said they had access to the account we set up for him. Okay, that's very sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be that is a possibility. So if the email was forwarded before they clicked on it, like before the user. If the user who receives the email, I mean, we're getting into like some like
some hacker stuff.
Yeah, like hackery. But if we, if somebody didn't click on the, like if you sent them, I could see where if you sent the invite to somebody and they did not click on the link to get to the site and authenticate and they just forwarded it, then I guess that could maybe technically happen. I don't know. I'd have to test it. I'm not sure. That is a good point. And then obviously, I know you mentioned this anonymous earlier. If it was anonymous, then yeah, that's definitely possible, because then that way you're just sending a link and it's anonymous. Anybody can get to it. So that's definitely an option that it would be forwarded at the anonymous.
I like some of the newer stuff they added in just fairly recently though, with the external sharing, with making the link expire and that
90-day expiration thing is really good.
And I think there's even like a PowerShell way. I tweeted about it the other day. I don't remember what it was. There's a PowerShell way to be able to control some of the defaults for that stuff.
Yeah.
Huh. Let's see. Ann says we didn't know much at the time and the person was afraid to use it. I don't know. Okay. All right, interesting. Another thing that was very sketchy that that I think is still the case is with the My Sites. I still call them My Sites, but all the personal site collections that everybody gets, and that has their OneDrive in it and everything. When you choose the external sharing option, that's just listed as one site collection in your SharePoint Admin Center.
Yeah.
Tenant name / my. And so basically for all the site collections in all the personal site collections, all the OneDrives, you either allow sharing or don't. And so it's not, you know what I mean? So that it's kind of like the 3 different options.
But can you I don't think anybody would have the access to share those though, would they? Actually, they may be able to turn it on, but actually clicking share.
Well, if somebody enables it, so there are 3 options. Don't allow sharing outside your organization. This is for all My Sites. Allow external users who accept sharing invitations and sign in as authenticated users. And then the 3rd option is allow sharing with all external users and by anonymous links. So whatever you set, though, sets it for either all of the My Sites or none of them.
Yeah.
So that's the sketchy parts, because all the other site collections you can do it by site collection, but the My Sites is just like all or none.
Yeah, because it's one site collection.
So that's one of the very things that a lot of IT, admin people worry about with that one.
Yeah.
Because that's usually where people want to share stuff, is when you just have a quick file that you created in your in your OneDrive, and you just want to quickly go share it with somebody in another company and collaborate on it. That's usually where most of that happens, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah. And back to that forwarding email thing. I mean, I think I do understand the concern, but honestly, if you look at it as let's go back and do the way that was super secure, which is doing the forms-based authentication and using a specific SQL table to store your users and then letting those users get authenticated, the way that people would do true blue on-prem extranets. I mean, honestly, those credentials could just be forwarded. It doesn't, is that really, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? So I guess it's just the way, it just depends on the way you look at it.
Yep. So yeah, you can always, and I think that list of external users in the admin center that you showed that exists now didn't used to exist. So that's huge that you can actually just go to that one place and see them, and in one fell swoop be able to take them away.
Take them out, yeah. And then also, like I showed in the actual sites area, you can see specifically, okay, I know this is my extranet site, so I'm going to click there, and then I can manage. That way, if people were, getting really complicated with permissions and they're actually sharing to external users, at the item or library level only, you can see all of those users, whether they're site, item, or library level, you can see them all in that one place without having to try to drill through the site. Because like I said, depending on the account that they're using to authenticate, what shows up in the group may not be very pretty. It could look like Laura, you know what I'm talking about with the FBA accounts, how they used to look lovely. Yeah. I'm sure in InfoPath where you'd have to write a specific thing to remove the front of the FBA account, that kind of thing. But they may look like that, or they could, if they have an Office 365, it probably will show their name and look all pretty. So they may look just in that sense, they may just look like a regular user. So it's good to have that place to go to see all the external users in your environment or in your tenant. I keep calling it environment. That's just, I gotta have it.
Does anybody, so Anne made another comment, said she was emailed, but anonymous access checkbox was still on. And then, does anybody else have any typical worries that you get either from whatever your perspective is, from the IT perspective or from the business perspective about this kind of thing, that you wonder how, things that you can do or how you would know, or did we go over, did you go over the little screen, the little share screen and the little links in it that you get when you're actually doing sharing a document or something? Did you show that one already?
I showed the share screen. Okay. It was at the site level though.
Yeah, oh, okay. Well, I love the way the improvements they've made to that to make it more simplified, to make it so that you kind of understand. It's so funny because every time I teach my power user class, I have to go redo screenshots of all that stuff because they change it so much and they keep improving it and making it so that it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anne says the names of external users are what they set for themselves. Okay, yeah.
Well, it depends, because if it's a live account and they don't actually have any, they only have a live account, they don't have any Office 365, no OneDrive, no anything, then it will just be like a really ugly email address.
Okay, but if you
with some
share
other
it,
stuff around it.
if you share it with anonymous link, are they going to show in external users?
No, not anonymously. No, it's not. They're not authenticated.
So if somebody has gone off and just shared a single document and just chose anonymous links and sent it, that doesn't show in the external users thing at all? Like there's no way that as an admin you would even know they did that?
Yeah. No, it wouldn't. So that's another reason why it's really good to look at that. Like you were saying, those 3 different options that you get at the site collection level, and, make a really wise decision about which one you choose. And if you're going to do this, I would probably just lean towards, the authenticated one.
A good best practice would be to have a specific site collection that is for the extranet and external sharing.
And that's the only one that has it turned on at all.
And that would be like, that's where
exactly
people go to go. And you highly audit what's in there, and you pay attention to kind of what kind of content people are, and you kind of really maybe, run your e-discovery, because we did a whole other power hour about e-discovery. So you could do a lot of e-discovery on what kind of content's in there and being shared, because you would know to be super paranoid and focused on that one. So yeah, and Anne says also they could forward that email to everyone and anyone else. Yeah, with that hyperlink in it.
But yeah, like I said, though, they could also forward your super secure FBA, on-prem login to anyone too. There's no, they could, any situation they could forward credentials on. That's just kind of part of external sharing. It's kind of a risk, whether you're doing it through a very, very structured authentication internally, or you're doing it with Office 365.
Yep. All right. Well, let's see. We have some announcements to make. Let's see. We've got. I'm starting a new company, and I'm calling it IW Mentor for all my SharePoint training that I've always done with Rackspace. Rackspace doesn't do SharePoint training anymore, so I'm gonna do that. And I actually tweeted out a poll to get for everyone to be able to vote on my logo. So I used this little company called 99designs.com to put together, put my picture there, to vote on. Basically, it lets a bunch of designers create designs for you, and you just say, I'm going to pay this much for the winning design, and all these designers go and create logos, and then everybody gets to vote for them. So it's I tweeted out this link to this poll that I created, because it's been a few days now of all the kind of designers submitting their ideas and things, so I've narrowed it down. So now I created a poll, and I put pictures of my top 8 designs. And so I'd love for all of you guys who are watching to be able to go click on that. I thought the only way I know to tell you the link is just the one that I tweeted out, because it's a special sharing link that lets me share share the way to get in there. But then it lets everybody go give everything star ratings and make comments and stuff on all 8 of the images. So it's kind of fun. So then it's going to be iwmentor.com once that goes live. Another announcement, we've got SharePoint Saturday Atlanta coming up, right, Joelle?
Yep.
That's in
June 11th.
What?
I think it's June 11th.
June, May. Oh, crap. SPS events.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's June 11th. I think, and then there's Nashville. SharePoint Saturday in Nashville is. I'm not speaking at it this year because I'm actually leaving for a cruise the next day, but that's on May 14th.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to, because I really enjoyed it last year, but I just couldn't swing it this year. But yeah, that's on May 14th, so that's another one in the kind of southeast area.
Yeah, and of course San Antonio is coming up. April 2nd. And
I believe I think our fellow SharePoint Power Hour person, Tanya, I think she's speaking this year at that. So that's really cool. So go check that out if you can.
Cool. And what else? There's something else I was thinking that I needed to announce. I don't remember what it was. Of course, I think I told everybody already. I updated my Wonderlore, my blog. It's WordPress now. It's much prettier. and I'm getting all that Oh, and I put a link on there on my blog to sign up for like a little newsletter I'll send out to everybody to let them know like what happens with, you know, when I put the training up on my new site. You've already gone. You're not at Rackspace anymore, but I'm still working on a project. So once I get done with that, then I'll be able to like focus on getting all that training posted up there and dates and different classes and stuff like that. So it's just not out there yet, but it's going to be iwmentor.com. Pretty exciting. SharePoint Saturday, no, not SharePoint Saturday. SB TechCon in Boston will be in June also, right?
Yes.
God, that's like that's close to SharePoint Saturday Atlanta, isn't it? So within a week.
Week or two.
So you and I will be presenting. We're going to be doing one of those half-day sessions.
Yeah.
Last time, so at the one in Austin, the 1 hour session that we did on the managed metadata and navigation and all that, it ended up being so much content that a lot of people said in the comments that it should have been a longer session. So of course, at that point, we were already planning on it being a longer session. So that's the one that we're going to do for a half day. So
yeah, and I've already found like there are really cool things that we can add into that we didn't really even get to touch on last time. So that'll be really cool.
Maybe we can even do it in SharePoint 2016.
Oh, ooh. It's true. It's true.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you next time every Wednesday, 11 Central. Over and out.